Uh, Good
Okay.
morning, ma'am.
Good morning, or good evening to you, I should say. Good morning to me, yes. So I was thinking about the different things that have been in my mind and on my heart over the last couple of weeks when I knew I was going to be meeting with all of you. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank you um, for being willing, because I just felt like I didn't have closure. You know, when you've been with somebody for so many weeks or months, and then all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. I thought, oh, I just wanted to see all of you one last time. And there were three things that maybe I was uh, learning about, studying about. I'm preparing a new curriculum for leadership skills development. Uh, but the three things were love, lollipops, and leadership. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. I did just put together a little bit of PowerPoint just so you could see some of the words that I'm thinking about. So are you ready for a little bit of teaching? Not long, and hopefully not too much of a lecture, more just a time of sharing. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about love, lollipops, and leadership. So a lot of people, especially at this time in your life, when you're getting ready to graduate and going on either for your master's or job search, you're thinking about the meaning of life, right? And the meaning of life, I think, has a lot to do with love. And I came across this poem that was written by a Nobel Prize winner years ago. I don't even think he's living anymore. He's from Poland. His name is Czesław Miłosz. And he wrote this poem that I came across in another book, actually. And I thought it talked about love in just the way that I've been thinking about it of late. So here are the words. Let me read it to you. Love means to learn to look at yourself the way one looks at distant things. For you are only one thing among many. And whoever sees that way heals his heart without knowing it from various ills. A bird and a tree say to him, friend. Then he wants to use himself and things so that they stand in the glow of ripeness. It doesn't matter whether he knows what he serves. Who serves best doesn't always understand. So I want to look at, I've had more time to look at this. I know so many of you are into poetry, and you probably get a lot more meaning even than I do. But I spent some time thinking about a few of these lines. So the first three lines, love means to look at yourself the way one looks at distant things, for you are only one thing among many. And I might have even talked about this in some of our classes, um, this idea of one thing, our story, the small story, and the big story, the bigger picture. And I might have talked about this before, but when we just look at life as our own one small story, it really is just that. It lacks so much, it's so small. There's a bigger story, always. There's a story that is so much bigger than my little story, although I fit into that larger story. But we don't always see that at different angles. We need to remember that we are not the sun in the center of the universe, in the center of the solar system. Uh, I'm reading a book right now by Palmer Parker. It's called On the Brink of Everything. And he talked about how we see despair when we are just focused on ourselves rather than the larger story of other things going on. Because when we look at things from a distant at the bigger story, there's more peace. And peace comes in knowing that I am one thing among many. Now, I don't know this author, Czeslaw Milosz, I should say. I don't know him. I don't know if he ever wrote an interpretation of his poem, but that's how I took this as looking at a distant, we see the larger picture and it gives us peace. If you do reading about the center of the universe, they have found out that there is no center of the universe. And that's a conclusion that has taken lots of scientific discoveries. And when we know and we rest in this, we allow our hearts to be healed. And even physical ills, I think, begin to dissolve when I know that it's not just always about me. There are other things going on, other people, other situations that, God is working together. And Parker goes on to say, as he looked at this same poem that I was looking at, that when we think about the birds and the trees, no matter how much or how little we know about them, they simply are gifts that befriend us. So he writes, and whosoever sees that way heals his heart without knowing it from various ills. A bird and the tree say to him, friend. So when we begin to see things from a distance and see the bigger picture, it helps us to know that even birds and the tree that the birds sit in befriend us. It's like nature. Palmer's understanding of this same line, let's see, let me go back to what it was. He wrote, then he wants to use himself and things so that they stand in the glow of ripeness. So when we are too focused on just ourselves, we don't allow the sun to shine through to ripen the fruit. Okay, does that make sense to you? So when we get out of the way and we look at a distance, the sun shines through and it allows things and people to become ripe. If we're at the center, we're placing ourselves in the way of something. When I'm out of the way of the sun, I'm casting shadows. But I'm not casting shadows, but I'm allowing things to ripen and to grow, like a bloom or a fruit. Okay, so we have to use our own imagination to know what Milosz meant by this word of ripeness. But fruit that is ready to eat, and this is what I thought about it, is so much tastier than unripe, hard, not yet developed fruit. So we need to sometimes get out of the way and let God do the work that he does naturally. A fruit develops in different tones and even shades. I found this picture that to me is such a beautiful picture of ripeness, because look at the different colors, look at the different shades. And when I look from a distance, I see a bigger picture. I see myself not as the only winner or the only loser. I'm one amongst many. And who knows, and that's what I'm going to talk about next when we talk about lollipops, who knows who might be impacted, okay? It doesn't matter whether he knows what he serves. Who serves best doesn't always understand. So I took that to mean that we don't always know the impact that we're having, right? So often on the journey to usefulness or ripeness or a goal or a dream, we ask ourselves, does my life have meaning? And the question of meaning is one that you have to answer yourself. So if someone else tells you the meaning of life, it might be encouraging, but it doesn't stay with you. I used to ask myself that question when I was your very age. And now I see it kind of as a futile question. unless it points to others, because meaning comes differently and it's relative to the situation, to the person or the people in my life. And some may not even know until later how somebody has impacted others. All right. So that's how I want to continue. On the nature of love, I want this to be the backdrop as we talk about the meaning of life and leading with lollipops. So this guy is Drew Dudley. This is just a 5-minute video, TED Talk, that I want to share with you on leading with lollipops. 6 minutes, sorry.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader and we don't let ourselves take credit for it and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school on a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, on my day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad. And I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, "Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day. And if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we will take you home. We love you no matter what." And she says, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration. And I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision. And as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinerama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinerama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me and you smiled and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop and you held it out to him. And you said, "You need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you." And she said, "I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life." He turned beet red and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face and you looked at my mom and my dad and you said, "Look at that, look at that. First day away from home and already she's taking candy from a stranger." And she said, everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy and I don't know why I'm telling you this. But in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm gonna miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, "You should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later." A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment. And I've searched my memory banks because that is funny and I should remember doing it. And I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, "You've been an incredibly important person in my life," was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, "Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us." And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you change the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today. Have a great day at TED. I'll see you later.
So just want you to think about your definition of leadership, because I'm sure that there are some of you thinking, I'm not a leader, but I'm a really good follower. But even being a really good follower is being a kind of leader. So I want you to think about what your definition of leadership is. I challenge you to redefine it. I challenge you to rethink what being a leader really is. And I challenge you to think of yourself as a leader, even in the times that you are following. Okay, I'm developing right now, as I said, a curriculum on leadership skills. And I talk about the different leadership styles that have been defined and described over the last 100 years. But I have also been thinking a great deal about, oh, sorry, I forgot this slide. All right, so looking at people differently, more naturally, organically, not forced, because you don't know the impact you may have when you're encouraging someone or stopping by to compliment them or something, all right? So Drew defines his concept of lollipop leadership as a moment when something that you said or did made someone else feel fundamentally better. A special moment where one individual positively shapes another person's life, but may not realize his or her impact. That's the lollipop that I want you to remember. Love, lollipop, and then leadership. So I've been redefining leadership, and I've been thinking about the modern leader. And the modern leader is somebody, I think, who leads from the inside out, who is concerned about the inside feelings and thoughts and backgrounds and different things. A modern leader focuses on coaching, developing, and empowering others. Okay, I attended a workshop last week by Adam Piandes, and this guy serves executives, managers, high potentials, teams concerning developing leaders at all levels. And he talked about 4 pillars of this type of leader. Now, he went on and talked a lot about communications, but you've been in my communications class. You know how important communication is. I want to focus on those four pillars of leadership: purpose, inspiration, values and virtues, and wisdom. Those things that are in the inside, and if they're on the inside, they're gonna move out to others. So let's quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I promised I wouldn't take too much of your time, but purpose driven with an eye on people. Okay. There has to be a knowing. Look around at the people and the world situations. You might not be able to solve the world's problems, but you have to be aware of them. Let compassion and mercy rise up in you as you think about these things. Otherwise, you'll be overwhelmed and you'll think you have to solve the world's problems, and it's not up to you, but you do need to be aware of them. When there is a knowing and then a connection with people, you can earn trust with others, and earned trust is important for a modern leader. This as opposed to granted trust, okay? Granted trust assumes that something is true without questioning it, but earned trust comes from caring, compassion, and connection. Okay, so there's a leader in Georgia, the state of Georgia, where I was living before I came to India. And there was a single Black American politician, lady, female, who was running for governor, and she almost made it. I think today she could have, because there are now more Democrats than Republicans, or at least the view of Democrats. But anyway, I listened to a talk that she gave not long ago. She's a voting rights activist, she's an author, and she talked about the three questions that she asked herself. And I think this is really important to remember when we're thinking about our purpose. What do I want? Why do I want it? And how do I get it? And I think those three questions will add purpose to all that you do. If you want, you can listen to her TED Talk sometime. I'm not sure what it's called. Just look up Stacey Abrams, Abrams, and you can listen to that. She speaks about this. And many would have called her not getting the governorship as a failure, but it has, I think, just motivated her to move on and continue on. So we all know that failures are our best teachers. Inspiration, and experience, okay? This is what connects us to other people. When we're self-aware, we take ownership over our choices. And we think of others with understanding, kindness, and forgiveness. This model inspires and has in mind our experiences. I really do believe that as we reflect on our experiences, we learn so much more than just experiencing something, okay? Because it becomes more than just knowledge. It also creates a culture of curiosity and serving others. It's inside of us, which helps us to look at others knowing that they also have stories and they also have experiences, and they might also have some garbage. I think I've heard it referred to as head trash. All right. But when we realize we've got some, but other people do too, everyone has stuff going on inside their heads. So when we acknowledge and support others, this inspires others and shows empathy. Adam said, expectation is the root of disappointment. And I've heard that before, said in different ways. It's kind of like ridding yourself of assumptions. Remember when we talked about assumptions in critical thinking? Okay, so eliminate expectations and we have fewer disappointments and more inspiration. All right, led by values and character virtues. Okay. Most of you know that I believe on starting anything with our values in mind, always. And this makes us much more approachable and does not allow us to stray from the path of morality and right standing. When we are sure about these things, we listen well and we serve better. So, listening well, which level of listening are you at? Level 1 is the lowest, when it's all about me. Everything that somebody says, we say, oh, but I, or did you know that I? So that's really the lowest level of listening. The second level of listening is I hear you. And the third level is I feel you. Okay. And that's where you're really putting those active listening skills to work. Once again, acknowledging others, observing, learning. And the result is when we acknowledge people, we observe what they're doing, we enter into their experience in some way, we are empowering. Empowerment has taken on a whole new meaning for me since I've been teaching at St. Joseph's, because it's not competition. It's never competition. It's an opportunity that is given to others. And it stems from security in your own values and virtues, which, in addition to empowerment, leads to influence. And influence is not manipulation. Okay? Influencing others is the lollipop moments that we just saw in that video. So the final one, wisdom, is really when we're working on our moral muscle, okay? It allows wisdom to develop. Okay, wisdom comes from questioning, directing, and requesting. Those three things result in curiosity and guidance. So these are all four things are working together. I think that relationships are the most important things. We don't learn in isolation. We learn in relationship. And asking questions, because it develops emotional responsibility. Let me show you, I put on this next slide a picture that I found. Okay, so here is question. All right, we question because we want somebody to be curious. We want to gain information. Maybe we also want to guide. And then when you ask questions, a person reflects. They think about what was asked them. So reflecting, by the way, they've even done some studies on reflection, and there are so many benefits. People actually produce better when they reflect on what they're doing and the questions that they have been asked, which turns to insight, all right? Insight connects the head to the heart. So in our head, we have information, and when we reflect and we are enlightened, it turns into inspiration, and then which turns into action, all right, which improves competence and wisdom is developed. This is really, I think, the process of emotional development. Emotional responsibility is something that all of you need to keep improving, because it's what we call in the 21st century forward thinking. So let's pull these three things together. Okay, remembering that modern leaders focus on coaching, developing, and empowering. So Martin Luther King once said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So I want to encourage you to love beyond yourself. Find love looking at the bigger picture, because there's so much more going on than we could ever see on the surface. There are moments when you will impact another life and you will not even know it. And that's a sweet lollipop moment. And it's there when you don't even know it. And when you think about it, or if you find out about it, it'll put a smile on your face. And finally, you're stepping into your future right now. You're already 2 decades into the 21st century. 2 decades have passed, and I think leadership has changed with your new generation. No longer is leading only for the brave or the rich or the noticed, because it begins with looking inward first, within yourself, and then within others. Others who need to be looked at from another angle, from a modern, moral, and insightful angle. The angle that looks at a distance and yet looks beyond, looks below the surface and yet lets it rise up. And that's what you're called to. And that's what I see inside of all of you. This was not a message that I just had, that I pulled out. This were the things that I really felt that God wanted me to say to you today. To learn to love well, listen well, to know that you are impacting someone's life when you don't even know it, and to know that a modern leader isn't somebody who is going to change the world. No, you change the world by coaching and developing and empowering other people, and then the world is changed. So that's my message to you. And I'm so privileged to have been one of your teachers. And I hope that I hear from you in the future, that you'll let me know how you're doing on your master's, or you're in your job, or fulfilling your dreams, as you keep in mind the knowing and the connecting. I think that's what is what's most important in this day and age. So what do you think? Let me see your faces. Tell me what you think. What maybe is important for you as you move forward. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
I was worried that I was talking to the air. So, finding your purpose. Look from a distance. Because sometimes we're so focused on ourselves and we think it's just our purpose, but there's so much more going on in the world. I think you'll find your purpose as you look from a distance. Anybody else? Okay, Sri Somya. Leadership is being kind and passing courage to the others by a small incident or sweet gesture that leaves a huge impact in their lives. Yeah. And leadership is making a big enough impact in someone's life that they feel a positive change in themselves. Oh, you guys wrote a lot of little comments in the chat. I didn't have my chat open while I was speaking. What's important right now is being organized, finding my niche, and figuring out the bigger picture in life. That's good. That's good. And that is, I think that the finding the niche is the small story, right? But it's still, there's always still the bigger picture, and they fit together. They're not like separate. So that's what we need to remember, that while I'm looking at myself on the inside, that's why I said the knowing also, what's going on in the world? What are people thinking and feeling? That's why we need to learn to listen well. Yeah, there's such a connection. They're not two separate things. Good.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, please, Sri Soumya. And then Shravya after that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, for me, what's important right now is holding on to the relationships I've made and the people I have in my life, because I know I have to find my purpose, but in that journey, if I have to find my purpose and go where life takes me, I need the people to encourage me and always, stand beside me and say that you can do it, you can go far, and we believe in you. So I need so right now what's important to me is people and the ones I have in my life.
That's good. And that is part of the
And
bigger
ma'am,
picture. That's right. Good.
yes, ma'am. And your classes, all of your classes and all of your words you speak are all sweet lollipop moments for me.
Oh,
You've really
good.
made a huge impact, ma'am. From the English for employability class and critical thinking class, then creative writing class, all of them, each class of yours has changed me in different ways, and I really thank you for that, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been a great honor and privilege. I think Shravya wanted to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How about you?
I'm good, ma'am. So recently I was just writing, something. I had time. I finally found time. So I decided I'll take some time to write things and sort out my thoughts. So the other day, this really awesome thought struck me when I was just thinking about books in general. And that's when I realized that I may be the protagonist of my life, of my story. And for some stories, I would just be a side character.
Mm,
But in some stories, I would play a minor role and would probably be considered a minor character.
uh-huh.
In some stories, I might also play the role of an antagonist. But that's just different perspectives. So when that thought struck me, I realized the gravity, how a person could change by different perspectives of people. While I might be a leader for someone, a best friend for someone, I might be equally obnoxious or a stupid person for somebody else. So, in the end, I feel I realized that I would just, no matter what, people would remember me, and a part of me would always be alive in how they saw me.
I think that's very insightful because when we look at things from different angles, it's like looking at things from different perspectives. Um, and there are people that are antagonists, in our lives, and we are in their lives. But it's still a purpose, isn't it? Even though we don't mean to be. That's sort of what I mean by the bigger picture. That's really good, Shravya. Thank you. Anybody else? Is there any chance that I could get you to turn your videos on so that I could get a picture? One last group picture?
Ma'am, I want to say something before the picture.
Yes, Sri
So
Samya.
I just understood from Shravya's words that, when we understand that we can be antagonists in someone else's lives, we'll have that urge to understand, the point of view of antagonists in our lives. And maybe that will help us have a peaceful life, because we'll understand, the people who are troubling us, or the people we don't understand well. We'll try to understand their perspective, and that will help us lead a peaceful life.
Yeah, and I think you have a really good point there about peace, because sometimes when we think, oh my goodness, that person doesn't like me, or they think I'm an awful person, and we start carrying so much burden, and yet it doesn't have to be that way, like you just said. It can. We can still see how I can maybe improve myself, but it does give us a better way to look at it rather than condemning ourselves. Yeah, good, very good. So I'm
Yes.
recording this. I'll have my husband just put it on YouTube. It won't be, it'll just be on his channel. It won't be out for the world to see. But that way, if you want to listen to it again, and especially listen to each other's, perspectives, I'll send you the link. So.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. So how about a couple more pictures, videos, and then I think that Yukta is traveling, so we don't get to see her face. Or at the last moment when I say 3, you can pull your mask down. Okay, there's Kavya, Sahiti, Gayatri, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm switching on, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I'll get ready and then I'll say, oh, we got it. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I love you all. I will be praying for you,
Love you,
and
ma'am.
I know that you're just follow your dreams, allow God in, and tell and keep in touch with me sometime or another. Okay, I'll be eager to hear how you're doing. So I wish you all God's best. And thank you for having this last little class with me. I'm going to stop the recording now.